Hello, this is Artie Astor from B Sharp and C. So I'm going to try to make this video short. I don't want to make it long only because no one wants to watch a long video on YouTube. No one has the attention span for it. And quite honestly, I don't want to have to edit a long video. So we all win. We're all winners here. Um, Pink Floyd, we're back. I'm doing an album that I have to do, and I'm just going to go to Wikipedia and read you some of this because it's going to set kind of the groundwork, or it's going to set the precedent for what we're about to hear. It's going to lay down the foundation of what we're about to hear, and it's going to help us understand why every song from this album sounds like The Wall. We're talking about the album The Final Cut, one of their most underrated albums, by the way, and it's chock full of some of Roger Waters' best songwriting. It says here it's their 12th studio album. It was released in 1983, and it includes unused material from the band's previous album, The Wall. So there were songs that were written for The Wall that were left out of the decision making as to whether or not they should put them in The Wall. It's their last studio album that features founding member Roger Waters. Now, it's the only one that excluded Richard Wright. And Dick Perry also is not doing the saxophone on this album. There were a lot of conflicts in the band. David Gilmour was accused of not contributing. And yeah, I can actually see that because I don't think he does vocals on any of these songs. I'll have to go through and listen to it. Maybe he does on Not Now John. Not Now John. I don't know. I'll have to verify that, but the gigantic majority of the songs, David Gilmour was not singing. There's not a whole lot of guitar work on this album. He was accused by Roger Waters for not participating that much in the album. And I think what we have here is the band was happy with their success as a band. They liked the formula that they had. Even with Roger Waters doing a lot of the songwriting, they liked the formula that they had. But it seems as though Roger Waters was kind of still riding high off the dovetails of The Wall and wanted to continue the success. And part of me actually understands that. If you write a bunch of songs, and you have this album that is basically one of the most successful ever in rock and roll history, then you, as the songwriter and the main concept behind everything, you are going to be like, well, um, okay, whatever we did on the last album worked. I was the main songwriter, so let's continue down that road. And I think the rest of the band was like, well, yes, we contributed to your music. You were the main concept behind the music, but it was really us as a band. At any rate, Richard Wright left the band under pressure from Waters during that whole thing. And this was pressure during The Wall, the recording of The Wall as well. This album, The Final Cut, was planned as a kind of like a soundtrack for the 1982 film of The Wall, right? So he was kind of, Roger Waters had in mind that The Final Cut would almost be connected to The Wall. So you're going to have a lot of songs that sound like The Wall. At any rate, I want to focus on one song. I recommend the whole album. If you like Roger Waters' songwriting, this here, and it's weird, it's super weird because I don't know how much help he had with the actual arrangement of the songs, but when Roger Waters went on his own to do his own career, he, in my opinion, nothing he did sounds like this, right? So he still was in the Pink Floyd universe when he wrote these songs, and they came out sounding like The Wall. But then when he went on to his own and did his own career, nothing he did had this feel, in my opinion. I mean, Richard Wright wasn't in the band at this point. So there was a different piano player. And David Gilmour, from what I read, really kind of held back on his contribution. But did he assist with the arrangement of some of the songs? Don't forget, you still had the whole entire band minus Richard Wright. So, including David Gilmour, including Nick Mason, right? And you also had James Guthrie, who was there producing, and he produced The Wall with Bob Ezrin and also produced the final cut. So there were some of the same members. Maybe that's one of the reasons why. But don't forget, some of these songs that are on the final cut were supposed to be included in The Wall. The band made a decision to exclude some of these songs from The Wall, and then they ended up on the final cut. Anyways, I want to focus on a song that I think is underrated. It's in the key of G major, and I just love. And they play a G augmented. It's just so beautiful. And just by playing these chords, you know what song I'm talking about if you're a Pink Floyd fan. Right? And just this right here. So, what song is this? I'm not even playing the piano the same way that the piano is played, but it's just these two chords. And then the G augmented. That E flat, or in this case it would be D sharp, right? We're in the key of G. Beautiful. All right. Let's go to it. Let's just go to the song because I'm not doing it any justice at all. It's a long song, so bear with me, but we're going to listen to the song The Gunner's Dream by Pink Floyd. This is a lost gem. Simple. Simple.
Floating down through the clouds, memories come rushing up to meet me now. But in the space between the heavens and the corner of some foreign field, I had a dream. I had a dream. Goodbye, Max. Goodbye, Ma. After the service, when you're walking slowly to the car, and the silver in her hair shines in the cold November air, you hear the tolling bell and touch the silk in your lapel. And as the teardrops rise to meet the comfort of the band, take her frail hand.
All right, so we're going to get into there's a saxophone solo coming up that I want to isolate. So before that, I just want to mention something. There are certain things that define a band. And when it comes to Pink Floyd, and I'm telling you, a lot of it has to do with their producers. Yes, the songwriters are huge, But when you produce an album like The Wall, when you assist an exploding band, an exploding artist in producing one of the greatest albums of all time, um, the band tends to lean on you. I don't know who makes these decisions. I don't know who makes these decisions, but like
and touch the silk in
you have piano going, you have a string section going on, right? And then just a bell comes in and everything kind of quiets down. That is so Pink Floyd. It's a it's something that helps define their sound. And for decades, it's weird things like that that take a song and it almost makes it very thematic. Not thematic. I don't know the right word I'm looking for, but it gives it that grandiose sound. There's something behind this. There's something more than just a piano, a string section, and a vocalist.
your lapel. As the teardrops rise to meet the comfort of the band, you take her frail hand.
But did you hear a bird in the background? What is that? What was that?
Take her frail hand.
Okay, I just have to add something real quick. Here I am in the studio right now. I know I'm wearing headphones and my hat's not on. I am editing the video, and it is a sin that I didn't mention this. The saxophone solo that's coming up, listen to how Roger Waters' voice goes so smoothly into the beginning of the saxophone solo. Okay, I'm going to go back to editing. I just had to come in and mention that real quick.
And hold on to the dream. A place to stay.
Okay, so now you're getting the feel of something The Wall-ish. That was definitely a tenor saxophone. You can tell a tenor from an alto by the way by the way the growl sounds. But then he did hit a note that was low, and I think it was a little too low for the alto. Um, I very seldom guess that incorrectly. Usually I can tell a tenor pretty fast. That sounded like a tenor sax. But you hear the voices in the left ear.
A place
Beautiful.
to stay. Enough to eat. Somewhere old heroes shuffle safely down the street, where you can speak out loud
Oh.
about your doubts and fears. And what's more, no one ever disappears. You never hear the standard issue kicking in your door. You can relax on both sides of the tracks, and maniacs don't blow holes in bandsmen by remote control. And everyone has recourse to the law. No one kills the children anymore. No one kills the children anymore.
What chords are those?
Night after night, going round and round my brain. This dream is driving me insane. In the corner of some foreign field, the gunner sleeps tonight. What's done is done. We cannot just write off his final scene. Take heed of the dream. Take heed.
Wow. Wow. This outro.
No one kills the children anymore. No one kills the children anymore. Night after night, going round and round my brain.
Ah,
This dream is driving me insane. In the corner of some foreign field, the gun.
and there was something else that I want to try to figure out. Right, where's the lyric? So he does this thing. I had a dream. I had a dream. Let me go back to the beginning. Right here.
But in the space between the heavens and the corner of some foreign field, I had a dream.
So it's funny. It sounds like a dissonant chord, but he just goes from G major to its relative minor, which is E minor. Okay. I thought it was like when you listen to it, I'm like, oh, is that a diminished, but it's just from G major to E minor. All right, there you have it. It's a very interesting construct. I did take some notes ahead of time and used the help of some sites. I always go to different sites when it comes to like how songs are arranged because these are just created by people like me and they can be wrong. But that chord is definitely a G augmented, right? You hear that D sharp in there. So what the information that I have here seems to be pretty accurate. What's interesting is you have the verses, and then you have what could be considered a chorus, but it's really a different take on the verses. Roger Waters' writing is always very dynamic, so you're not going to get the super traditional songwriting that you normally would get. He just goes with what he feels, and whatever chord he needs to use to express what he feels, he uses. He doesn't care if it like breaks some type of musical mold that was created. He never wanted to be boxed in. And then trust me, I don't think I'm the only one who has come to that conclusion. Um, but the end where it's kind of like night after night, I can't sing right now. It's just that part there in the end. So it's basically like a bridge, but it's kind of closing out the song. It's so indicative of like the way Roger Waters writes music. I just think it's really perfect. And it's funny because I've met a lot of people over the years and I've introduced a lot of people to Pink Floyd and a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall." And they're happy liking those albums and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're not a big Pink Floyd fan, um, but you've listened to The Wall and you've listened to Dark Side of the Moon, um, and you like them, and if that's all you're happy with, then that's all you need to listen to, right? You don't have to go down the rabbit hole. But I've had people ask me, like, what else is there from Pink Floyd that's not Dark Side of the Moon or The Wall? And I almost start drooling because those are two of their many studio albums. How many studio albums does Pink Floyd have? 15. I don't know if that's right. 15 studio albums doesn't sound right to me. Oh, okay. All right. The final cut is the 12th studio album. So then the 13th studio album would be Momentary Lapse of Reason. And then the 14th would be The Division Bell. And then the 15th would be The Endless River. And what's interesting is they could have done so many more in between. They in the beginning they were putting out albums fast, but as time went on, they took a couple years in between albums, and then once Roger Waters left, um, they took big chunks of time before albums came out. And then there was a big chunk between Momentary Lapse of Reason and The Division Bell. I don't know if it was like 5 or 6 years, but there was a big chunk of time in between. But they would usually go on a tour to promote their albums. And it's interesting because Pink Floyd now, of course, after The Endless River, they're essentially done cutting albums. But Pink Floyd, in their later years, kind of became known for having great concerts and great light shows, and they would really do this tour. And David Gilmour got really well known for just being a really good live performer. Um, but it's weird because some of their best stuff from the early 70s and the 70s, um, you don't have the same thing, like good luck trying to find a live version of anything from Animals. It's just not out there. So the band had went through so many changes over the years, and that's one of the reasons why I like them so much, because they did have the two gigantic albums, but they have so much more, and then they have work leading up to their gigantic commercial success, and you can see people grow. You can see Richard Wright grow from someone who was just able to play a few chords to someone who recognized, okay, I'm not Herbie Hancock, but I like different chord voicings. So he really contributed to a lot of that eerie sound with chord voicings and everything because he learned how to deal with limitations. Same thing with David Gilmour. He's not Eddie Van Halen. He's not going to play as fast as him, but he has an ear for melody, and he also is very technically good and mechanically good at the guitar. So you never really listen to a David Gilmour guitar solo and think, "Oh, I wish he would play faster." He just doesn't play that way. He recognized for him he could communicate perfectly with the guitar without doing crazy runs and without shredding, you know. And of course, Nick Mason, you cannot overlook the contribution of Nick Mason. Yeah, he's one of the only drummers I've ever heard where the drum kit in and of itself sounds melodic. There are certain songs that I listen to from Pink Floyd where I'm just waiting for the drum fill. Oh, hit those toms. It's so impactful, so meaningful. Every drum hit by Nick Mason was meant to actually make you feel something. He wasn't just hitting drums because he had to keep time. And then I go back to Roger Waters. Roger Waters um, is a genius, an absolute genius when it comes to songwriting. I do believe the band when they say that it became almost impossible to deal with him after The Wall, in between The Wall and the final cut. I do believe the band when they say, because it was pretty much every member of the band says the same thing, that Roger really wanted full control of everything. And the rest of the band was kind of like, oh, I'm just not going to try that much. And then, of course, Richard Wright left. David Gilmour didn't contribute much to a lot of the music in the final cut. You know, did he sing? I'm gonna Google this. Did David Gilmour sing any songs in the final cut? Ah, I knew it. It was Not Now, John. David Gilmour sang lead vocals on one song on the final cut, which was Not Now, John. He sang the verses while Roger Waters sang the refrains and interludes on that track. Gilmour sang lead vocals on no other songs from the album. How many guitar solos did David Gilmour play in the final cut? So check this out. David Gilmour plays 4 guitar solos on the final cut. The Fletcher Memorial Home, the final cut, the post-war dreams, and Not Just a Flame. So you have to stop and think about this for a second, okay? David Gilmour comes into the band in, I think, the late 60s, right? Yeah, he came into the band in the late 60s, replaced Syd Barrett, and then one album after the next gets cut. And David Gilmour doesn't do a whole lot of crazy lead guitar work. It wasn't until you have like Obscured by Clouds, Metal, and these other albums, um, Adam Hart Mother, where David Gilmour begins to experiment with his guitar, right? Adam Hart Mother, that's another one I should do a video on. And now you have Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall, where the band is known for their massively awesome guitar solos. And then Roger Waters does this album, The Final Cut, and David Gilmour sings on one song and does 4 guitar solos in the whole album. That is really something. That's really something. Anyways, going back to this song here, The Gunner's Dream, I think it just really encapsulates some of the best of Roger Waters' songwriting. The lyrics are really nice too. I know that as time went on, Roger Waters got a little bit more and more political, and I think that also affected the band. They didn't want to go down that road. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this awesome song. And quite honestly, awesome album. It did reach #1 in the UK and I think #6 in the United States, even though it's considered a flop by some people. But Pink Floyd fans know the deal. Pink Floyd fans know the deal, and they look past the differences between Roger Waters and the rest of the band. I think a real Pink Floyd fan looks past that, you know. Um, they look at the whole picture. They look at the contribution. This was an interesting album, though, because you didn't have Richard Wright contributing, and you almost didn't have David Gilmour contributing. It was really a lot of it was Roger Waters, but yet it sounds mysteriously Pink Floydish. And again, that's probably because a lot of the writing took place during the writing of The Wall. And there was at least one producer that was on both The Wall and the final cut. And I think that helps kind of maintain that sound. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments section. This is Artie Astor from B Sharp and C. Keep it groovy.